Welcome to Inspirational Journeys, everyone. My name is Ann Harrison, and today my special guest is Lynette Eason, who, as I told her before we started recording, is now becoming one of my favorite authors because her books will read like a thriller. But before we get started, I want to thank Karen Steele, the publicist for Baker Publishing, which Revealed Books is a division of, for connecting me and you listeners with these great authors. Thanks, Karen. All right, welcome to the show, Lynette.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an author. I'm sure that comes as a surprise. I'm married. I'm married and I have two kids, and both are pretty much grown. My daughter just graduated, if you can call it a graduation, from thanks to the virus, but from the College of Charleston. And my son is a sophomore at a local college, and so my husband and I are doing the empty nest thing, or at least we were before March, and now we have a full nest again. So I just spend my days pretty much writing and taking care of my family and traveling a little bit. And now that things are starting to open back up, so life is good. So I don't know what all you want to know, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Well, that's good. That's a way for me and for the listeners to get to know you. So what inspired you to become a writer?
Well, honestly, it's kind of a long story, and I'm going to summarize just for the sake of time. But my husband used to travel for his job, and he used to travel quite a bit. So I was a bit lonely, as you can probably imagine, with him being gone all the time. And so I kind of started writing out of loneliness. And I had always, even as a middle school kid, I remember thinking, I want to write a book one day. And I figured, you know what? My husband's on the road. I have all this time. Now might be a good time to do that. So I sat down one day and started writing. And I didn't know anything about what it took to write fiction, but I figured if I didn't start somewhere, I wouldn't get anywhere. So
Yep, gotta start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere. So I sat down and I had a story kind of in my head, and I wrote it, and it never will see the light of day because it's horrible, but it was a great learning tool for me.
Don't we all have those, though? I mean, really, I had one that there's a long story behind that first one. But anyway, so tell me a little bit about your process. Are you a plotter, a pantser, or as I like to call it, a plantser? What I mean by that is,
I used to be, when I started writing years ago, I used to be mostly kind of seat of the pants. I would just sit down, take the idea that was in my head, and start writing. And now that I'm older, my brain is a little slower. It takes me a little while to kind of get my story where I want to get it. So I do a little bit more plotting these days, but I would say I'm still a combination plotter, pantser type. Plantser, I guess. The plantser. That would pretty much describe me. Yeah.
That's kind of me too. The first time I did National Novel Writing Month, well, the first stories I ever wrote, I was a pantser, but now I'm learning to plot a little, pants a lot, plot a little, so that's kind of how that works. And some people call it a rolling outline. I had an author, I can't remember which one, because I've spoken to about 10 of y'all, so but I had one that she said she does a rolling outline, so I guess that's what you'd call it, because it's not really an outline, but yet it's a. Oh no! It wasn't on the podcast. It was Robin Lee Hatcher. I went to her Zoom thing, and she told me that's what she does. So she's one of my faves too. But anyway, so what was the inspiration behind the Danger Never Sleeps series?
You know, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. The Danger Never Sleeps series came out of, most of my books just come straight from my imagination. Something might spark it, like, something on a television show, something. I don't really know one thing that sparked the idea for this series, but I've always loved the military. I've got family that was, that's military. My dad was in the Air Force. My father-in-law was in the Army, so I've got that military connection. And so I thought, it'd be kind of nice. I don't really want to write military stories, but it might be nice to write about characters who were in the military and how, when they get out, how do they adjust to being back in the civilian world, I guess. And so that was kind of where I started. The idea I started with, and then I had to come up with the characters and the situation that throws them all into danger and that kind of thing. And I ran it by my editor, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I really like that idea." So so I kind of took it from there.
Wow. And so are your books in the romantic suspense genre? And the reason I ask that is because it's got the little bit of romance. It's like a thriller.
Yeah, it's the romantic suspense genre. I tend to lean heavier on the suspense than the romance, just because that's my preference. I grew up reading Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, Agatha Christie, and the Boxcar Children, and all of these mystery suspense type stories, and Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators, great stories. And so I guess as I started writing, I guess it was just a natural transition from reading those kind of stories to writing those kind of stories. But I also grew up reading some romance. I was a big Harlequin book reader before they kind of turned and had a little more explicit than what I would want to read. But but they didn't used to be that way. So I was reading a lot of romance as a teenager and young adult and that kind of thing. And so I was like, man, it'd be really cool to combine romance and suspense. And of course, in Nancy Drew, you had the teenagers, they had their romance going on. It seemed like there was always a romance in, whether it was mystery, suspense, whatever. And so and so when I started writing, it just seemed kind of natural to go that route. And then I found Dee Henderson and her stories, and it was Danger in the Shadows, I think, was the first one I actually read of hers. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have a new favorite author. This is what I want to write. And so I kind of patterned my stories after the way she wrote her stories. And I ended up emailing her, and she ended up being my mentor for the most part.
Oh my goodness. And the reason I'm laughing, it's not because of what you say is funny. It's just kind of funny because it's right up my alley. I love the same. I don't think I read the Boxcar Children. I have to look that up. But Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. I even read one of the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys combos.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it though. Let's see, Agatha Christie, Encyclopedia Brown.
Oh yes, Encyclopedia Brown was a favorite for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we kind of have a lot in common there because mystery was I read the Sue Grafton, which hers got a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Hers got the more you read, the stronger the language got and everything. And I'm like, nope, not doing this anymore. Plus her books got a little too predictable, but for me, but that's just me. That's my thing, and I'm not, trying to say anything negative about any writer. So
no. I understand completely.
Don't think that I'm downing the writer, but to me, it was just. I like the ones with more suspense, not
Mm-hmm.
the language, but more suspense, and ones that make you ask more questions and you're trying to solve it and then you find out you're wrong at the end. Those are
Sure,
the kind of
sure.
mysteries I love.
I understand completely.
Right. If they're too predictable, I'm like, no. This is if I can solve it before the detective does, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Woohoo!
That's why I like your work so much, because it's not predictable.
Oh, well, good.
Because I didn't figure it out till right at the end. I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
Well, good. I'm
Right.
glad to hear I'm doing my job well then.
Right. So tell us a little bit about acceptable risk.
About what now?
Acceptable risk.
Oh, okay. Well, the book is the second book in the series, and it actually releases today. So happy birthday, book.
Yep.
Yes, you have yeah, if you want to flip it and then around to the other side, and then flip it one more time sideways. There you
This way.
go. Yeah, that way. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah,
That.
that's the cover. Yep. And well, so acceptable risk is, like I said, it's the second book in the series, and it is it's just it was a story that I sat down and I brainstormed with a group of other authors. We had a little brainstorming retreat in Arizona a couple years ago, and um, it was just a really, really fun time. Lots and lots of work. I was brain dead by the time I left there, but it was me, Colleen Coble, Carrie Stewart Parks, Robin Carroll, Pam Hillman. And we just really had a great time brainstorming this story, because I was at a loss. I didn't know who these characters were, what they were doing, or whatever. And so yeah, so I had them help me figure out kind of what the story, the plot line was. So we've got Gavin, who's the hero. He's former Army. And we've got Sarah, who's a military journalist. And when you put the two together, you got trouble. So, and sparks and all that fun stuff. So you've got a little bit of romance. You've got somebody is trying to kill Sarah, and she doesn't know why. And Gavin is desperate to keep her safe, and they've known each other for a while. Like they've known each other for a few years, so that because they're all part of this group of friends, and so that was cool. So anyway, this story, I don't want to give anything away, so I'm trying to filter my words as I talk. But
Yeah.
yeah, so there's something going on now. I can say Sarah's brother, her younger brother, does wind up dying right at the beginning of the story, and she's devastated, and she does not believe his death was a suicide. It was, and she doesn't believe it was an accident. She believes that somebody did this to him. And of course, you know, everybody is telling her that's just your grief talking, that kind of thing. And she's like, no, there's got to be something behind it. It just doesn't add up. And so she starts on a quest to find out what really happened. And of course, that leads her straight into danger. So anyway, if you want to know the rest of it, you got to read it.
Right, exactly. But I would really encourage you to read Collateral Damage first, because
Yeah.
that's where you first get to know Sarah and Gavin. Do Asher and Brooke appear in the second book at all?
So, sorry?
Do Asher and Brooke appear in the second book at all?
They do, yes. They are in all of the characters are in all four of the books. Yeah. So you'll get to learn a little bit more about what's going on in their lives as you read through the series. And right now I'm working on book 4, and I'm over halfway through it. I have to turn it in September 2nd. So I keep I keep working on that. So, but yeah, all the characters in all the books.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why I suggest reading the series. And if the series is so connected, I'm a series girl. If I see a book is released from an author that I'm interviewing or an author that I love, I want to read the entire series because I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
So when does the third book come out?
The third book comes out in January of 2021. So
Can
all
you
of my
tell us?
books tend to release January, August, January, August, January,
Oh
August. So
wow, you
yeah,
stay busy.
yeah, I do.
Wow, so can you tell us the title of that one, or are we gonna have to just wait?
For the third book
Yeah.
is Heather and Travis. Are the two main characters. Heather was she's a field surgeon in Afghanistan, and she decided she wanted to come home, but she didn't want to quite leave the military, so she went into um, the reserves and wound up being called back to serve one more. I think it was like I can't remember the timeline exactly how I worked it, but I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. And while there was an explosion at the hospital she was working for. And from there, things just kind of take off. And when she comes back home and she gets out of the the military for good, but it looks like she has a stalker. And so all of her friends have to gather around her and try to help protect her while they're trying to figure out what's going on with her. So, and Travis, of course, he's liked her for a long time. And so he jumps right in as the hero that he is, and helps protect her and catch the bad guys, I guess.
Now I'm curious because I've seen this done before, but you
Uh-huh.
pull it off so well. How do you keep? I know you do third person point of view, but how do you keep the different characters when you switch points of view? How do you keep them connected so well?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the compliment. And I think it's just because they become. Now, okay, I'm not delusional. I know they're not real people. However, because I think about them so much while I'm writing, they kind of, I mean, they develop their own characteristics and their own personalities.
They
And
talk to you.
yeah, and they do. And,
Am I
sometimes
right?
I
I
don't like what they
know.
say, but that's okay. Um, but I just, so it's it's almost like they're writing the story through me. Like they're telling
Right.
me,
Oh, I get
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Totally.
So it's pretty cool, yeah. Um, so keeping them straight, they're just different people. It's not really any different than keeping, my mom and my brother and, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, it's not any different to me than keeping them straight, because they're very different people. They have different likes and dislikes. And so, yeah, they just, it's not, to me, it's not that hard.
Wow, because it was amazing how you kept everything connected and just kept the story moving forward, even changing points of view. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I tried writing that way, and it didn't really work for me. So for my
Mhm.
books right now, I'm for the novel I'm working on, finishing up the first round of rewrites. Long story there.
Mhm.
I'm doing it in first person because I had my main character told me at 4 o'clock one morning, and those of you listening have probably heard this before, but still,
Mhm.
don't. But still, she told me, I need you to let me tell my story. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and they do. And they do.
yes, they do. So, um, do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot. So this is generally my answer. And my answer is to write as much as possible, make sure you're learning the craft, but also you're not going to, if you're only reading craft books, you're only studying craft books, you're only, going to conferences, which is a great thing, but you're not actually doing the writing, um, you're really not going to learn what you need to learn to be published traditionally. And really, and really indie as well, because you want to put out the best product possible if you're going to indie publish. And there are a lot of great indie stories out there, but the ones that are great are the ones that are doing it right. So my main advice is to write, join a critique group, get feedback from somebody who's kind of further along in the process than you are, and it doesn't have to be a published author. It just has to be someone that knows more than you do
Right.
about the publishing process, about writing and craft. And so that's, if that's what your goal is, to be traditionally published, or to put out a really good indie product, then I would say, be willing to be critiqued, be willing to take feedback, grow a thick skin. Most of the time, most of the time, the feedback you get from somebody, it's not personal. They're just, but it can feel personal. And I think most people can tell the difference between somebody who's trying to help them by giving them positive feedback and a critique, over somebody who's maybe jealous of their work and is just being nasty about it. Those kind of people you ditch and you don't need in your life. And you listen to the people, you listen to the people that are giving you, that positive feedback, that positive critique, and people that have positive things to say about your writing as well as critiquing it. So you have to be aware and careful. Don't listen to negativity, but be willing to take an honest critique or feedback.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's all about building that community too.
Exactly. And be a part of that community. Get to know the people in the writing community, and that's a huge thing.
Right. So where can people find you online?
I'm pretty active on Facebook. I have an Instagram account, but I look at it maybe like once a week or something. So if you really want to get in touch with me, I know, I'm like, Facebook is all I can handle. Facebook and Twitter. I do Twitter, but Twitter's easy and short too. But
oh yeah, I love it for myself.
Yeah, and my website is just my name, LynetteEaston.com. So you can find me there. I have a contact form. If you want to email me, you can email me through my website. That's pretty easy to find online.
Okay, so do you have any questions for me?
Oh, what made you want to start interviewing people?
Well, okay, so the thing about it was I started wanting to do a podcast. I've been thinking about it for a while, since I started really getting into my writing and stuff. I'm like, I got to get my voice out there, because once I got my website, people see my writing, they see pictures that I've learned how to post. And then I was praying about it, and I talked to one lady who told me she helps launch podcasts, but every time I wanted to do it, I'm like, God's like, no, I've got a plan for you. And then I talked to the lady who turned out to be my friend and writing coach, and she interviewed me for her podcast last year, and I told her I wanted to do that, and she said, well, maybe that's the next thing for you. I downloaded the Anchor app, and then I talked to another blind podcaster who was doing her own thing. She told me that it was, she said it was totally accessible, though there were some workarounds. And I just started planning the podcast, went to the Anchor site and got it started. And I just prayed, Lord, give me the words to say. I was nervous at first, but then I've been doing this for over a year now. So I wanted to give authors, creative artists, and entrepreneurs a place to share their story, the story behind their creative process, while showcasing their work. And I also do solo episodes where first I was reading occasional poetry, but now I'm into more writing tips, updates on behind the scenes, updates about my writing life, writing tips, and book reviews. So I do a little interviews and some solos too. So, and it's actually fun. So the Lord just opened that door, and without that, I wouldn't have been able to meet great authors like you.
Oh, that's really sweet. That's wonderful.
Thank
that sounds
you.
Great.
So, do you have a Bible verse you'd like to share?
Yeah, actually, I do. One. I guess it's my life verse, the key verse that I go to often, sometimes for reminders. is it's a well-known verse, and it's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And plans to give you hope and a future. And I just really love that verse. I love the message in it. I love I love the fact that the Lord already knows our future, and that He wants to prosper us. He wants to give us hope. He wants us to, not everything's going to be perfect, but we can rest in the knowledge that in his hands, all will be well, no matter what happens. And, I've really been leaning on that verse a lot lately, just for some personal, stuff going on in my own life. And it's just a real comfort to know that I don't have to worry about the future. He's already got it.
Right. That I know. I love that verse too. So would you like to close us out in prayer?
Absolutely, sure. I'd love to. Heavenly Father, I just want to say thank you for all that you do for us, your love, the fact that you do have a plan for us, whether whatever that may be, whether we know what it is at the moment or not, but you have the perfect plan, and you love us, and you want the best for us. You want to give us a hope and a future. And I just thank you for Anne and everything that she does for authors, and her love of writing and her love of reading and her love for you, Lord. And I just pray that you bless her. And I thank you for this opportunity to talk to her and get to know her a little bit. And I just pray that you bless our listeners, and just let all good things flow from you, come from you. And thank you again, Lord, for this opportunity and all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, I pray, amen.
Amen. So we challenge you today to go out there and read to get inspired, write something inspiring, and share your creation with the world. For when you've touched one life, you've touched 1,000. Thanks for listening and watching Inspirational Journeys, where your story matters. Have a blessed day, everyone.